Hi, Dojo, ECO Dojo, this is Sensei. We are doing a tour of EIEIO. It's my hobby business. This is what I do in my spare time if I'm not teaching you, doing research. Started in '07. So basically, how do I get into this? I did a lot of gardening when I was, before I got, after college in Connecticut and working on a small farm in Connecticut. And this is an academic class. I want to show you 5 books that really influenced me. This is the first one, okay? How to Grow More Vegetables. Santa Cruz Bio-Intensive School, okay? Raised beds, planting stuff close together, double ditch digging, the whole 9 yards. Okay, this is a worthwhile book to read. It has recommended plant spacings, the whole business, okay? Really, you can get 4 times the food production using bio-intensive systems than just using, plain rows. Okay, let me repeat that, 4 times. This was another big book for me. Okay, Elliot Coleman, Harborside, Maine, 4-season harvest. You can grow in Maine under protection all year. In the middle of January, you can go out and you can grow stuff if you have protection. Okay, that was revolutionary. This is another good one. Carrots Love Tomatoes. Companion planting. What plants like each other, what plants don't. It can influence your selection of what you plant where. Okay. This is a more recent one. Out of print. Ruth Stout in the 1970s wrote about the mulch method. She's the one that started the mulch method. You don't have to till the ground. All you have to do is mulch and plant into the, through the mulch. Or on the mulch. Radical. That's pretty radical, right? No tilling. No rototiller, no pitchfork, no backbreaking work. No work garden. Okay, I recently picked this up. It completely changed how I think about how I do my stuff. And the last one. Remember, this is an academic class. I wrote, read this a while ago. Picked this up from the library to show you all, but Fukuoka, okay, One Straw Revolution. Ecosystem-based approaches to natural farming. Farming, as a ecosystem and more in line with nature. This is more of like the feeding your soul type of book. And again, these 5 books have probably had the most influence of what you're, about to see. Also our neighbors, Gordon and Lisa Simmons, who you'll be touring in another video segment. Tremendously influential. They've been gardening for 20 to 30 years. A lot of the techniques that you see here, we're using from them, okay? Unbelievable influence. Probably the biggest influence, a living encyclopedia of gardening knowledge. So with that said, what's the pitch here? Let me just condense this down really simply. Most folks, you're not getting enough production of vegetables, and you're putting in way too much time, okay? Not enough production, way too much time. Am I interesting you now? Meaning with the systems or using some different systems, you can get more production per unit area, and you can spend a heck of a lot less time out there. Meaning you can be doing more of the things you like playing Farmville on Facebook. Okay, so here we go. Are you all set? Let's go. Let's see it. When you see people planting in most gardens, right, you expect rows. And we'll kind of pan out here. This is kind of the whole area. It's about 1/3 of an acre. This is not a row-based system. It's more of a compressed bed system. Okay? So, here's a perfect case in point, an example, right out by the shed. This is fall potato. Okay? It is like a 2-1, 2-1, 2-1 spacing. The spacing based upon Jevons, remember these are bio-intensive method, spacings from the John Jevons book. Anywhere from probably 12 to 18 inches. At least a foot, probably 1.5 feet, maybe, pushing sometimes 2 feet depending on the variety. The plants don't outcompete with each other. They develop this nice canopy. Remember, this plant is dying down, right? So, to bulk up that tuber. So it develops this nice canopy. You have minimal weed growth. I mean, remember too that it's also mulch, but it's the dense spacing of this is what matters. If you kind of walk through here, okay, you kind of see a similar thing. I mean, leeks, another case in point. You don't have the spacing of potatoes. They're like probably 3 or 4 inches. But that's the dense spacing. It's a compressed bed of like a 6'5", 6'5" offset matrix spacing, diagonal matrix spacing in that bed. Those look like great leeks. They're not out competing with each other, yet they have basically, you know, overshaded weeds. And that was just one weeding. You can see it here. That's a frame of peppers and eggplant. Very, very dense spacing. You know, they're not competing with each other. So by doing this kind of spacing, you are really maximizing the amount of food that you're getting in the same area. Because remember I said they're not out competing with each other. So you're going to get the same productivity, but you're getting it in a quarter of the space. You know, John Jeffin said, if you use this method, in a quarter of the space, you can produce the same amount of food that you did in a, you know, 4 times the space in a row-based system, period. Okay? Okay, so that's how we produce a lot of food. One subtle thing, you notice here, right? I really jammed things together. That was a early crop of peas. Now that got all bushy and it was all bushy here, but you notice that sandwich between Brussels sprouts and leeks. So what happens? Peas are all done, right? You got a pass space. So I jammed that thing. This thing is pretty tight spacing, even for like intensive spacing. It's pretty jam tight. Okay, so that's how we get more food. You time things. You plant things together that you know you can get access spaces. You plant them in the recommended spacings according to that How to Grow More Vegetables book. Simple. Okay, so great, Sensei. You convinced me how to grow more vegetables. Great. But how do you spend less time doing this? Root stout is where this comes in. You mulch. So if you see here, this is all mulched with grass clippings. You can use grass clippings, you can use shredded leaves, you can do sheet mulching, you know. Root Stout in the 1970s wrote about this in a series of books. You know, there's that more recent lasagna gardening book. You can do layers of newspaper, okay? Anything that will suppress weeds. The key layer is newspaper or some sort of paper material, brown paper material. You won't see a single weed. You have to put a lot of grass clippings, but the grass clippings, they retain moisture, they prevent weed germination, okay? And all we're doing here is we transplant it into the mulch. Okay? If you're planting lettuce or carrots, you're digging a layer and you're seeding in through the mulch. So maybe we'll kind of go over here. You can see these like little rows here. This is going to be a late winter stored in the ground carrot that is direct seeded into the mulch. It's a method I'm experimenting with. It is in a row, and remember how I said you don't usually plant in rows, but it's the efficiency. I'm seeding down a lot of seeds in that area, and that basically took me like under 2 hours to do three rows like that. You know, I had to clear the area by hand, seeded it in, but that's what I mean. You're creating areas, small areas that you're seeding stuff through, and it's going to come up. And you got to kind of experiment with, you know, plants do get bigger, but that's what I mean. Less time doing things. You're not weeding. Remember, you're not tilling. This is no-till. There's no rototiller. There's no, you know, limited pitchforking. That whole block up here has not been tilled in 3 years. This is a block of corn and winter squash interplanted with each other. That has not been tilled in 3 years. Okay? Those are all direct seed plugged into the ground in a mulch layer. No tilling. You won't get any raccoons in your corn with this sort of interplanting. But the point is this has not been tilled. No tilling. You're not spending any money buying rototillers, buying tractors. Okay? You don't have to do much pitchfork work. All you have to have is access to mulch, and most people with small gardens have access to a lot of leaf clippings and a lot of grass clippings. Mulch, 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 mulch. No work. Okay? And the bigger picture thing of what we're doing here, and I'll probably just use one example of this, is we are using more of an ecosystem-based approach. Okay? So as we walk up here, you know, this is a big block here. of corn and winter squash, pumpkins, those sorts of things. Edamame soybeans, fresh green soybeans. And this right here, okay, is buckwheat. So that is something that in this year, that's the only thing I'm growing. Now, why are you doing that? You know, it doesn't give you an economic return. You know, you don't eat well, you can't eat buckwheat. It actually is used by the Canadians, right? Used in pancakes, so you can't actually, you know, harvest that as a grain. But the reason I do that is that, you know, we've seen a decline in native pollinators and bees. And when this thing is basically humming with flowers towards the end of September and into October, okay, early October, every single bee in 5 miles is here. And they have a nice source of pollen when there's nothing else flowering for them to put themselves through the winter. So, you know, that's an example of when you're doing these sorts of things, you're thinking from an ecosystem-based perspective. How do you create and orchestrate a system? How do you design a system that can maximize ecosystem services, those pollinators, okay? That's the key. There's one other critical piece here, and this is the golden rule in life. If you have a problem, and this pertains to gardening, so we'll kind of pan out to gardening, right? If you have a problem, see if you can eat it first. We'll kind of walk this way. Those of you that were pretty savvy, right? Those of you pretty savvy and picked up on this, just notice that, you know, that those blocks of Brussels sprout plants shouldn't look like that. Right? And we got big time woodchuck pressure. Big time woodchuck pressure. I'm not going to go into details of what happened, but the woodchuck is now, you know, I made a nice stew out of him. He's in my refrigerator. Deep fried him, slow cooked him. Best tasting meat I've ever eaten. If you have a problem, see if you can eat it first. That goes for things that bother your garden. See if there's you know, you can find some way to eat it first. This is another kind of getting back to a previous point. You notice that things look pretty jam-packed. This whole row in here used to be cauliflower. I jam-packed that thing in there. Cauliflower goes, you know, really early. Row space. That's jammed very, very tight. I mean, I jammed this thing, there's no walking space, there's no pass space. But the pass space is created because, you know, there's that time gap. Sorry, I had to point that out. So, last point. If you have a problem, if you have critters, they're really tasty. Now, you know, the other thing is, but Sensei, I get a lot of weeds. Same precept, philosophy. If you have a problem, see if you can eat it first. And we'll go take a look at an example. As we kind of pan out here. So we got peppers, eggplant, sunflower, pole beans, onions, right? Pole beans here you see 2 beds of carrots, early carrots. You have old lettuce. Old lettuce, let that go to seed. This is all going to go to seed. Why? Because you'll get it next year. Why collect the seed? Why plant the seed? Let it naturally go to seed. Not all of them will seed, but you'll get you get a nice head lettuce plant. You don't even have to plant it. You've got rhubarb. You've got Japanese burdock, which I used to eat as a kid. That big leafy looking thing. You've got parsnip. Kind of looks like a celery-like looking plant. Scorienza, which is another kind of root vegetable. Tomatoes. One of our big things is onions. So this is a whole block of onions. Now you might look at this and say, wow, there's a lot of weeds in it. This was all mulched, okay? Everything was mulched. And you will still get weed pressure. But do I care? No, I don't. I'm gonna pick this stuff to cure. I picked some today. And while I'm doing that, I'm gonna pull them up and just kind of use them as mulch. Most of them haven't gone to seed yet. Lamb's quarter produces black seed. It's starting to go to seed a little bit. You can see those black seeds. But usually this would be chock full of black seeds. That's all going to be pulled and used as mulch. So you might look at that and say, wow, you got a lot of weeds, Sensei. You don't have any onions. This is a very good crop. This is one of my better crop of onions. I got some ginormous onions there. Now, as you can see here, we're curing them. This was stuff I have not fertilized with. I use fish meal combined with sulfomag because we're organic. This was just grass clippings. Just grass clippings, mulch with grass clippings. I actually did that late because the crop looked pathetic. Magic is grass clippings. Not a bad onion. So you can see that I kind of pulled them up, as they top down. And then, there was weeds there, but now they're mulch. Did it affect the production at all? No. Because, if you ever take a class with Eric Gallant, it was before the critical weed-free period. When this stuff was coming up, because this was planted, by the end of April, right? From set, the weeds were controlled. If there had been a weed flush in May, we wouldn't have had any yield. It's when you get the weeds. So anyway, getting back to that theme, right? You're all probably chuckling, okay, Sensei, you have a woodchuck in your crock pot there. Oh, that was great, that was tasty, right? We saw the crop, see if you can eat it first. Well, we're gonna look out here. This is one of my other cash crops. This whole low growing stuff here, this does definitely, if you look at it, it has to be weeded. But this is a crop of winter carrots, right? Bolero. If you can see that, there's a lot of weeds in there. And for most people, you're thinking, oh my goodness, this is not good. Most of these weeds that are growing, like obviously there's some grass weed, but most of these weeds that you're growing are completely edible and have more nutrients than the crops you're trying to grow. Here's the 3 big ones. Everyone should have these. This is lamb's quarter, okay? They're all kind of known by probably as pigweed, but this is lamb's quarter. You can tell that it's lamb's quarter. It has a very unique looking sort of feature. I kind of showed you the mature version that I broke the seed head apart on. But you can tell that the dead giveaways, there's that white frosted appearance to the plant, especially on the underside of the leaf, okay? And if you this is in the spinach family. It has the same nutrient profile as spinach, yet it has about 2 to 3 times the amount of nutrients. This is tasty. If you cook this up, it's exactly like spinach, but you have to get it young. That is good, and you guys had some, right? Really good. This is amaranth. You probably saw some mature versions back there by the onions, but you can tell the dead giveaway. It's also called redroot pigweed. If you pull this up, there's a dead giveaway of the root is red like that. That's how you know it's the plant that you want to pull. You should see a lot of this in your garden. This was revered by the Central and Native American Indians. This was like holy to them. There's a certain variety of this that produces a grain crop. This has a lot of several nutrients in it. And this is probably it's seeding out a little bit and beyond the stage you want to grow, but it's very good. It's a little bit, we got more fiber to it, but a lot of nutrition there. And this one is something I more recently discovered is edible. To most organic gardeners, they get a lot of this. This goes to seed really, really quick. And this is Galanzoga. It has this tiny little yellow flower. I don't have many specimens of those because we mulch a lot. But this tastes like artichoke. Okay, you will get this a lot. You will see this, a lot of this. And the dead giveaways, it's a tiny yellow little flower, Galanzoga. And this is edible, it tastes like artichoke. It's nice, tasty. All these things, there's purslane as well that we haven't shown you. But as you can see, if all this stuff is edible and has good nutrient value, you can freeze it, cook with it. These aren't weeds. It's a crop. So remember, if you have a problem, see if you can eat it first. Well, that about wraps it up. If you have any questions, you can reach me on First Class. And once again, the big thing is, we're always looking for folks that are interested in learning more about this. And if you have an interest in either being an apprentice or coming and helping out, I can't pay you, but you can take home a lot of vegetables. Feel free to, again, reach me on First Class. Thank you very much, and thanks for your time.